Hello and welcome back, everyone. Happy Thursday. Today we are going to be going through a Dev Diary number 158, which is detailing the art of national awakening. Now, before we get into it, just want to give the caveat that I don't think there's going to be too much mechanics in here. We kind of skimmed through it very, very briefly, and it's mostly just art. So this might be a sit-it-out one if you are kind of the podcast listening type of viewer, because it's going to be mainly me being like, ooh, look at that. But there is one nice surprise at the end, and by surprise, I mean something I'm really delighted about, but a lot of you probably won't care about, but we're gonna have it at the end. So without further ado, let's jump in. Hello Victorians and happy Thursday. Happy, not capitalized, that is a problem. Almost as problematic as that loud car louding outside. This is Carl, the art director, and we don't capitalize happy because we don't believe in holidays. And being a man of pictures, not words, this diary may not be as long or as full of references as those of the designer. The last three Dev Diaries have been very long, so it's a bit tough to beat that in terms of length, but I hope you find it interesting and it gives you some insight into the process of art development. Being an artist in a game like Victoria 3 is an amazing opportunity, but it comes with caveats. Imagine Van Gogh. I think it's supposed to be pronounced with like a guttural like but I'm not sure how to pronounce Van Gogh perfectly. But palette in hand, being gently reminded by the QA. Is the QA always gently reminding? I feel like the QA is like, no, most of the time, but maybe not. That his wheat field isn't ideologically neutral enough, and having to paint sunflowers that accurately represent economic policies of British Empire in 1876, as one does. Still, we all have both of our ears lies, not Van Gogh, for now. Yep, true. What? The week's Dev Diary is quite image intensive, but we split our two general areas, 2D and 3D, which hopefully self-explanatory, I hope. Before we dig into that, however, let's take a look at some of the UI related features. Some new visual interface options. First of all, we've added some UI features to Victoria 3, an extension to the theme selector that we call Dynamic. This new dynamic system will automatically switch between assets, the paper map, the UI skin, and the table assets, to match the country you're playing. This is fantastic. Very, very cool. We're starting to get more nations, and so this definitely makes a lot of sense. We have 1.3, which had French content. We have the grapes on the table. We have the baguette centaur, these types of things. And so we have the associated theme there. We have a theme for the EIC, and I'm guessing you would use that for the rest of India. We have the Colossus of the South, which is there going to be the South American content. And so it's very nice that we are going to have this swapping around based on, I think, what nation you're going to be playing. This applies when you start a new game that fits the profile of a UI reskin, for instance, but not limited to France, India, Austria, or any of the Balkan nations. Oh, but we're not having a reskin. Oh, but not limited to. There we go. I can read, I swear. And I have both ears. Note that you will still need to own the appropriate paid content. Of course, you can always turn off the setting if you prefer a different look or want to customize it yourself. Generally speaking, what we've done is we just play on the most recent one, because that way when the discerning viewer clicks on a video, they are able to tell what patch it's from based on the UI that is present in the game. But continuing on, secondly, we've introduced a new category to themes called a main menu image. As the name suggests, you can now pick and choose between previous releases' main menu depending on your mood or fancy. Is it a royalty or commerce kind of day? You decide. This can also be set to default, meaning it will display the latest release. We'll probably do that. I do like quite a lot the industry one, though. Maybe we'll just set that as the permanent background, because these like kind of look similar. If we get another like theme pack with like this bright coloring, buildings in the background, and a few people, and we could have our dark coloring representing the gloom of the Victorian era, as smog is overhead, you know, choking out our lungs as the fires of industry propel our nation, and by our nation I mean the rich people of our nation, to upward and new heights. I think we would prefer a little bit more of that. So that's probably what we're going to end up going with. Now, on to the parts of the update that occupies 2 dimensions: UI, maps, and event images. The UI skin. The Balkan region showcases a diverse architectural heritage shaped by the centuries of cultural exchange. To emulate this blend of references of cultures, we've drawn inspiration from the traditional regional folk art, which shows both the Byzantine and later Ottoman influences. So we could see here a little bit of a different vibe. So Byzantine and Ottoman influences. Looks like we have several different colors with the same kind of little menu flare that we have up there, and also similar looking highlighting, although it is different shades. I think I kind of rather like the blue one here. The Balkan region uses earthy tones, with the main colors being red, black, green, and gold. And this entire color palette we landed on for the UI panels. We felt that the motorcycle was loud outside, but also that using earthy, almost clay-like reddish tone is a refreshing change from previous skins. We contrast this with a dark gray background for the main UI information, with buttons and olive green shade. Decorative elements such as trims and frames around buttons are much more colorful, with accents of blue, orange, and off-white. I really do like the aesthetic here that we have going on with what we are describing here. Finally, gold and yellow is used to bring out that luxurious, prestigious, or is it prestigious? You decide. A key pillar in the UI art style of Victoria III, which also draws inspiration from the Byzantine or Byzantine jewelry and ornaments. For materials, we combined stone and stained glass elements in the main elements, while secondarily we use secondary headers use fabric. So I do think this is the stone and stained glass we are referring to that's in here. The blend of disparate materials, hues, and architectural approaches serves to underscore the regional cultural diversity. So I'm liking the kind of aesthetic here, and so the Victoria 3 in terms of UI usability on release was very, very bad, but now Victoria 3 has one of my favorite UIs, I think, out of all of the Paradox games. I think that in terms of aesthetic, I just generally really enjoy it, and in terms of usability, now it's really easy to kind of do what you want to do in Victoria 3 very quickly, in terms of having low amounts of clicks and accessing information, and so it has really come a long way over the years. Now it's been years. Tabs have an ornate frame inspired by the Byzantine jewelry and with gemstones. The subheader has a pattern inspired by the fabrics patterns found on traditional Balkan clothing. So here's the little bit of fabric that we have here. I think this is also another bit of fabric that we have at the very bottom, and we get a little bit of a tease of what's to come at the very end. We have the paper map skin. Do we get anything like the Baguette Centaur here? Let's take a look. For the National Awakening Immersion Pack, we've significantly expanded on the colored paper map concept we experimented with in Pivot of Empire. Drawing inspiration from the 18th and 19th century Eastern European illustrations, we've crafted a vibrant collage for the paper map. This new design features some key elements, characters, crests, heraldry, and slice-of-life scenes specific to the Balkan region, as well as some Austrian influences. And so we do see a little bit of art in here. Are we seeing a centaur? No. Is that centaur wielding a baguette? Also no. So, objectively speaking, probably not as good as 1.3's paper map, but still, this is very, very cool here. This is actually probably more art that we've seen on a paper map than any other paper map, so that is quite neat. Other collages showcase more of a life in the Balkans and or under the Austrian Empire. So it looks like we have some of this down here, which is very cool. This guy's throwing a spear. Fancy that. This guy's laying down, taking a nap. And then this guy is looking at this other guy. Also, this guy is enormous. He's like at least 8 times the size of this man. Very, very strange. I'm sure this man is terrified. But it does look pretty nice here. And it's also very clear which one we are playing. One of the consistent elements that appeared on all the map skins so far, German was chosen as the map language, as the main language of the Austrian Empire. So we do have Scala here. Is that the Falkland Islands? Maybe. Is it the Falkland Islands? No, it's close to the Falkland Islands, though. I do like those islands. And finally, for the land masses, we've included various illustrations to show what resources might be available in different regions. Interesting. Various illustrations to show what resources? So it looks like these are the plains. We got some cotton down here. And we got some mining over here. Very, very cool. And this is present across... I wonder if this is dynamic. Surely it's not. They probably just decided which areas to represent. We also see the logging up here. But, okay. Very, very cool. It would be so cool if it updated dynamically based on what you were actually building there, but that seems maybe a tall ask. Maybe it's not. I don't really know if that would be hard to do. We also have event illustrations. When coming up with new ideas for event illustrations, we look at the theme and content of the immersion pack. However, one of the perhaps less obvious considerations is that we also look at our existing library of event images, because you want to have something that covers a wider and wider span of things. That way you will have more and more art, moving forward for events, I assume. And we try to identify what might be missing. For example, do we generally lack event image centered around education? What about a gap in cultural immersion? Do we have an image of police that is more Eurocentric? We have a lot of images of police beating on protesters, don't we? Or maybe it's that one we've seen it so many times where the policeman is just, taking a whack at him. Actually, that might not be European, now that I think about it. Alright, fair enough. These are some of the things that the narrative team and art discuss when we look at what we want to do for our upcoming event illustrations. I'm sure they have a number of illustrations, and they decide what illustrations they want to do, and it's probably a bit of an interesting... I think that'd be an interesting thing to be on the fly on the wall for, discussion as to what they should do. But okay, they make a decision. Of course, the priority of these images for an immersion pack is naturally to draw the player in and immerse them in the region. Alright, we do have a little bit of art here that is going to be new, and we have the immersive nature, I think really, really leans on clothing in general. And so we have what I assume is... the dress of some people from the Balkans. We're not really the best at identifying stuff just purely based on outfit. We have Austrian European police raid taking place. Well, we don't have anything. We have police like putting down the commoners, but I don't think we really have as much police interfering with arms of government. So this is kind of introducing a new element here. Very nice picture we have. For National Awakening, we took a lot of reference from the Austrian Empire and its interaction with its many subjects. We also tackled the contrast between rural and urban life in the empire and the ensuing cultural clashes with these illustrations. Here we have an officer inspecting a peasant army, showing the juxtaposition between the commoners and the elite. He's got a nice hat. They don't have nice hats. This is truly the only difference between the elite and the commoners. It has nothing to do with income and everything to do with hats. Here we have a rural life is not all that idyllic. Isn't that urban life? I fear that I am somehow, well, maybe this is a rural town. This guy certainly looks a little unsavory. But okay, continuing on, we have icons. The new features coming with National Awakening and the free 1.10 update, man, I'm gonna have a hard time not saying 1.1.0, did not require any new icon styles. But as usual, when design is involved, that doesn't mean there's no new icon work needed. So we have some new icons for character traits, namely special character traits. These are traits that are unique to any historical characters that appear in game. Interesting. We have unique ones for historical characters. As these are quite unique traits, it seems like a missed opportunity to not make these characters even more special. Okay, so I didn't realize that they were reusing icons for special traits for special characters, but I guess they are. We will have Pedro Legitimacy, Napoleon of the Americas, not like the Napoleon of France. We have Excellentissimo, the Great Reformer, Great German Unifier. I'm guessing that's Bismarck, but we do have a whole bunch of these. Lenin Popularity, of course, that one's pretty self-explanatory who that's going to be on, Dear Lenin here. And we have the General Revanche. We do have the return of the Baguette Centaur. So, a lot of cool little images here for our character traits. We won't read through all of them. But there we go. The 2D art team has also created new icons for features like laws and law variants. Makes sense, there's a lot of law variants coming in. New companies and prestige goods and new achievements. Many of these will be showcased in a future dev diary. Stay tuned. Pelly note, spoilers, Carl. Basically. First, you didn't happy the Thursday with a capital H, and now you're doing the spoil. Shame on you, Carl. Shame. Okay. And with that, we conclude our look on what the 2D department has been working on, and we move on to the 3D art, architecture, table assets, and character art. We're here for the table assets, really. Some general notes on architecture and direction. These look pretty cool. When choosing the architectural style for this release, we considered whether we should strive towards a Balkan look or an Austrian look. Even though the narrative content of the DLC largely focuses on Austria, we felt that the Austrian architectural style would be too similar to the pre-existing base game European buildings, as well as the updated French Haussmann style buildings in Voice of the People. That certainly seems reasonable that, you know, Austria, when designing the European buildings, they probably leaned on Austrian buildings to some extent to inform that, and so this makes sense. Hence, we decided to dig deeper into, more specifically, the Balkan visuals, including many different regional architectural styles from the Serbian mountain log camps of Kladibor to the rich tier urban residentials in a more Konak-inspired buildings. So we do have these poor buildings here, which look very cool and also very dissimilar from the current European. We have the mid-tier urban residential buildings. These are pretty cool. Different shades of paint on the different levels. And then we have the rich tier urban residential areas, which are going to be looking pretty neat. Interesting that you got the overhang here. Architecturally, is that sound? I suppose they would know better than me. References we have for the low tier urban residential, very cool. I wonder what process they go through to acquire these. Probably looking through various images from towns or stuff like this. Interesting. Here is one of the oh wow, with modern clothing too. Very cool. Okay, so this is the lower tier. I wonder how that phone call works. Hey, we'd like to check out your house for the low tier buildings for our video game. We have the mid tier urban residential. Looks like this one is a drawing, a sketch. But okay, this is looking pretty cool. Or is this watercolor? I don't understand my mediums. And then we have also some nice ones here. And this is going to be the upper tier. Alright. We have urban and vernacular buildings. For the civil buildings, we went with something similar to the Serbo-Byzantine revival architecture, playing with a lot of colorful stripe patterns, loud cars outside, curved windows, domes, and towers. Those different tiers of urban residential buildings are based on their own distinctive style. The poor buildings are based on the Ottoman vernacular style, the mid-tier are based on the national revival style, and the rich tier are based off the Balkan secession style. And so I do think we will get to see a Balkan city hub. And are these the buildings down here now? Okay, cool. We don't zoom in too often, so honestly, what this is supposed to be contrasted to might be a little bit lost on us, because we never zoom in this far. Where is this exactly? I don't know where on the map this is even. I'm guessing somewhere like in the neighborhood of Greece. Okay. We decided to go with two different styles for the rural poor tier buildings, one inspired by the Serbian mountain log cabins in Zlatibor, and the other by the Romanian Bordei buildings. The rural mid-tier buildings were heavily inspired by the town of Elena in northern Bulgaria, with its hefty stone walls and house foundations. Finally, the rich tier building drew a lot from Byzantine architecture combined with some Konak elements. The other buildings present in the farm used the style of these tiers depending on what we saw fit best. For example, the ranch uses something similar to the poor tier buildings, and the vineyard uses the rich tier. Makes some sense. Interesting. And then we have something more rural looking, with these little houses out and about. Very cool. Again, I can't remember what the vanilla looks like. All I remember is the sound of the loud car outside, because we don't zoom in this far normally. Based on the updating mining and factory buildings that we have gradually introduced in the Voice of the People and Pivot of Empire packs, we've reskinned these buildings using a simpler texture swap. Is that going to improve performance? That would be cool. This is an approach we've taken for some of the buildings which don't, where it doesn't make much sense in giving them such a strong cultural identity, since they tend to differ vary little from culture to culture. The primary visual driver for these structures tends to be technology and practical solutions, not vernacular materials or cultural customs. Our goal with these buildings is instead to show the player in more detail what is actually being produced in your nation at a particular site. So, looks like we do have a mine down here, and is this some kind of railroad / mine area? Maybe? It looks like this might be the beginnings of a mine. And then a few of the Balkan factory buildings. Okay. A Balkan oil rig. And again, we are using a reskin. But that looks cool. For the port and forestry hubs, we decided it was time to make quite a large overhaul. We've been lacking when it comes to information shown in previous port hubs, and due to the limited amount of buildings being spawned in forestry hubs, they have not really not given the player much information other than, yes, there is a port and or forestry hub in this region. We'll start with the port hub. For some context, the port hubs in Victoria 3 are quite different from other hubs in that most buildings built in them are spawned as an attachment to an actual port hub structure using predefined locations relative to the centerpiece itself. This resulted in the following issues and solutions. They didn't show the player everything you had built in it. For example, we didn't have a visual representation of whaling stations or military shipyards, so we have added those. In the late game, your port would generally only have one attached building spawned 3 times in a row, creating a repetitive, folk-like structure. To avoid this, we have given each attachment quite a distinct shape and limited them to only being able to spawn 1 time in each hub. This solution caused another issue, however, the player not being able to tell what the port was most proficient at, which we deem vital information. This was thus gotten into a loud car outside, resolved by adding yet another attachment for each building, so essentially changing the base of the port hub centerpiece depending on which port, on what the port was focusing on most. Since we've sorted this out both design-wise and in scripting, we intend to stick with this approach where applicable for any building we've set going forward. That is certainly reasonable. So we have some of these dynamic ports. I didn't even realize that the port was doing different things at different times. It was zigging and also zagging. So we do have this here. We have a nice little protected port there. And I wonder what each of these are. This may be fishing, this may be trade, or is this is shipbuilding maybe? And then this looks kind of more industrial or maybe military. Looks like they're building some ships there. Looks like this is also building some ships. This certainly looks like a defensive structure attached to the main port. And then we have, this looks like some fishing here, maybe. And looks like docks are loading and unloading. This is certainly a whale. Shout out to oil. Whaling is actually one of the things that I think is represented historically in maybe the most poor way in Victoria 3, because at the start of the game, before it became common to extract oil from the ground, one of the most lucrative industries worldwide was whaling. And then when the oil came, that industry basically just got deleted. It just like completely busted. And there's no representation of this in Victoria 3. It would need to be its own thematic theme. And so if they ever do like a naval update, maybe that would make sense as a bit of flavor inside the naval update. Some type of, enormous industry that affects the world because you needed oil for a whole bunch of different uses, and this was the way that you got it. And then the collapse of this industry as well, which would also allow for kind of the beginnings of taking a look at a boom-bust cycle. Generally speaking, from a design perspective, Victoria 3, they seem to like to put something in place and then flesh it out later. We've seen that with characters, we've seen that with companies, we've seen that with other things as well, where they kind of get their foot in the door, the mechanic is maybe a little bit simplified, and then they expand on it again later. So this is maybe something that they could do for a boom-bust cycle, or it's not really a boom-bust cycle, but rather the complete collapse of an entire industry. But maybe dynamic resources would be getting your foot in the door, where, you can chop out the forest, and then you lose out on the wood if you chop too aggressively, if you delve too greedily and too deep. And similarly, you can overfish, and then maybe you have this very, very lucrative whaling, and then that just goes by the wayside, especially if you have ships. You know, unique ships, maybe, or ships are discrete units. Maybe a bunch of ships get repurposed from whaling to instead some other purpose like trade, and you see an uptick in trade, while simultaneously the whaling goes by the whale side, if you will, as it is no longer a profitable industry. But okay, asides aside, moving on to the forestry hub. In order to try and give the player more information through the forestry hubs, we decided the most useful approach was to communicate the different production methods selected in each hub, so that it is what we have done. Similar to the port hubs, we have spawned and switch out attachments for the forestry centerpiece, depending on the production methods chosen the following way. A base production method is reflected in the design of the main centerpiece, from temporary wooden shacks to brick factory structures. Hardwood production method decides what types of piles of wood appear, logs or cut planks. Very interesting. Special equipment production method decides what type of equipment is spawned within the centerpiece. FYI, chainsaws are tiny and may not be visible on a low resolution without glasses. So they buffed chainsaws just to nerf them again. Is this what I'm hearing? Terrible. Never using the PM again. Transportation production methods decide what type of road or rail that goes through the centerpiece. Beyond this, we've added a line of trees to the centerpiece, which gradually gets removed and turned into more wood piles when adding levels to the hub. That is super cool, but again, we never zoom in. Think of this as a reference gauge to how much available wood is in the region has been harvested already. We made up a whole bunch of words in that sentence, but nifty. Having put in the script and backend work, we intend to give the new forestry hubs the same treatment we've started doing for the mining and factory buildings, so in future building sets, we can make sure to give them a new coat of paint, helping them to fit in into the residential buildings, and hopefully match the local regional flavor within that set. Doing color matching based on, you know, templating and this type of thing. But very cool. Looks like we have here regular roads, and looks like not planks, just logs. And then coming down here, looks like we have more planks, still with the regular road. Looks like we maybe have deforested a little bit, maybe a similar amount of forest. Looks like this is looking nicer, so maybe we have a higher tier PM at this point. Don't see the chainsaws, but they said we wouldn't see the chainsaws because why would we use that PM? Is this maybe where the chainsaws go? Okay. But okay, closing out the topic of architecture and map improvements, we've also remade the Hagia Sophia from scratch to make sure it looks on par with the new Balkan building set. Interesting, and this perhaps makes a lot of sense when you're going over a region to redo this. We are seeing a rework of regional resources generally as they do a flavor pack for that area, and so I guess it makes a lot of sense to redo the buildings there as well. Character art. As always with immersion packs, we've added a bunch of new clothing assets and historical DNA fitting the region and historical content. We have late Balkan outfits, very warm and comfortable, which is our favorite. We have Austrian military hats, stylish, but not very tall, so they must be part of the lower class. Balkan fur hat, perfect match for that coat in winter. Does look nice and cozy. Balkan Hadjuk outfits. First image is work in progress screenshot from ZB Brush. One of the many applications we go through in the production process. Looks like they have this, art that they are consulting, or not art, but image that they are consulting to get an understanding of what they want it to look like, and we have a more finished / polished product. How many guns you need, bro? I mean, okay, fair enough. Yep, okay, fair enough. We see another gentleman, or another set of gentlemen, with lots of guns, some historical characters making an appearance, the reference we have worked from, and the baseline DNA and outfit rendered in the engine. So we do see some of these strapping lads. Now, this is something we're a little bit less familiar with, other than Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and so these are characters we recognize a little bit less, but it is pretty cool how they have managed to get the DNA to capture these guys pretty closely here. So that is pretty cool. Table assets, and this is the part we're excited about. We're excited about this because of the lie we were sold long ago. We are coming on to my favorite part and perhaps the most ephemeral addition to the immersion pack, the table asset. This is my favorite part as well. Not that we look at them that often, but boy do I like me some table assets. As usual, we have made 4 different areas, each striving to represent the Balkan region. There's little to say about the process. Really? Other than they are usually produced by doing some basic modeling in Blender, then brought to ZBrush where we sculpt the finer details and make sure things look organic and not too digital/perfect. Then we texture them in Painter and finally bring them back to Blender where we blend until smooth. Where we set up a suitable lighting, bake it down into new pre-lit diffuse textures that are then used in-game. The process of using pre-rendered lighting is the reason why we can get such realistic-looking results for our table assets compared to our characters or the 3D map. Lighting them in real time using our engine lights and shaders would never let us achieve the high quality of the lighting that we get using this method. We hope you enjoy occasionally looking at them as much as we enjoy making them. I do enjoy them. So we have a bugbear flask. Very cool. Neat looking flask. We got some matches over there too. Okay. We got a tobacco pipe. That is a cool pipe. I really do like me a Gandalf pipe though. Like, you have like a pipe like this, and then you have like a pipe like this, and then you have a pipe like this, and you know, it gets funnier as it gets longer. But okay, this is not a Gandalf pipe because we're talking about like I guess a normal American-looking pipe, although this is a normal-looking pipe for a different region and time, just extended to look like the Gandalf pipe. Okay, coffee and locum, a perfect match. We do like some coffee. We might caffeinate after this video. The keen-eyed observer may notice that we have added a bit of shader magic here to fake real-time reflections on the coffee's surface. I'm not discerning or keen-eyed, but it does look faintly reflective. And is this sugar? Why is it red? Interesting. And finally, and this is the part we're excited about, and I'm sure most of you are, why are you excited about this? Finally, the piece de resistance, kolbaz, sausage, and a juicy pickle, a perfect match. The keen-eyed observer, not us, may notice that you actually see the dental marks of our senior environment artist on that... Well, we would have to be a little bit more than keen-eyed now, wouldn't we? I guess on the fork thing, we would have to also have an understanding of the dental of the senior environment artist. But the reason we're so excited about this is because you may have looked at the grocery building in Victoria 3, and you may have been like, wow, that is a really cool croissant. It's not, in fact, a croissant, it's a sausage. Let's maybe pull that up real quick. And, actually, is it a sausage? I'm second guessing myself, whether it's a croissant or a grocery. So, but if we take a look at the building, oh, is this going to take us too long to get to? I should have had this prepped ahead of time. There's a building, it looks like a bagel, it's not a bagel. This is a sausage. We, for the longest time, thought that this was a bagel, or that it was a croissant. No, this is a sausage right here. Reign of the sausage reigns supreme. And so, now we have a sausage on the table. We just whip it out, and we whip our sausage onto the table. Delicious. Okay, so very excited about this. This is going to be the table asset that is replacing grapes for us. We've always used grapes for the longest time. We will now be using sausage all the time. And with that stunning display, we conclude our tour of visual elements and with 1.10 and National Awakening. We hope you have enjoyed our brief look into the life of the struggling artist, and send them a kind thought whenever a visual detail catches your eyes with min-maxing tariffs. Next time we rejoin you in Dev Diary form, we will be capitalizing happy as is tradition, as is just, because Happy Thursday is in fact a holiday, and we will also be there for the changelog, including achievements, on the 18th of September. That is 1 week from now. And remember, National Awakening Update 1.10 will release on the 23rd of September. Remember, tomorrow we will also have the GDFIX day, so join us on Discord and submit your small bugs from 10 a.m. CST or CEST. can't even read a time zone. But with that, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and do the notification bell. I do believe you can use our code that we got from EU5 if you wanted to pre-order the DLC for National Awakening and support the channel. 12% of the sale will go our way if you order it on the Paradox store using our code GENERALIST in all caps. So if you're interested in doing that to support the channel, that is a good way to do it if you are going to be buying it on release. But other than all that art, you know, happy Thursday.